Perfect. So here we are live. So, welcome everybody. My name is Tracy. I am the founder and author of Her Stories Untold, a global book project sharing different empowering and inspiring stories of women and men around the globe from all walks of life. The reason this project was created was because I realized that there were so many women out there, so many people out there that have stories to share, journeys that have been taken, but not realizing their significance and importance. So this project is open to all women and transgender women around the globe. If you have a story of your journey of how you came to be, whom you are, and where you are today, please do check out www.herstoriesuntold.com. Again, the purpose of this global book project is to empower, uplift, and inspire other people. So before we begin our talk today, I want to acknowledge that the land on which I live and work is the traditional and unceded territory of the Kwikwetlem Nation and lies within the shared traditional territories of the Tsleil-Waututh, Katsiap, Musqueam, Squamish, Kikik, and Stolo First Nations. And I also want to note here that July is Disability Awareness Month. So every year in July, Disability Pride Month celebrates persons who experience disability, their identities and cultures, and their positive contribution to society. The event aims to change the way people think about disability. It promotes all types of disability as a natural part of human diversity. So just a little bit of context. Disability Pride Month has been celebrated in the United States since July 1990, when the Americans with Disabilities Act came into law. So today it's celebrated around the world, including in Canada, where 22% or 6.2 million Canadians live with a disability. So disability is not only an identity, but also a community with a diverse culture, all their own to be proud and celebrated. Disability culture is about visibility and self-value. Disability Pride Month is a time for recognizing these facts and listening to the people with disabilities. So that's quoted from supportedemployment.ca. So welcome here. And I'm very excited here because we have Heidi Beierle here today. And just to let the audience know a little bit about Heidi here. So this is about her bio. So in 2010, she had just finished her first year of graduate studies in community and regional planning and decided to pedal her bicycle solo from her home on the West Coast across rural America to the Preserving in the Historic Road Conference in Washington, D.C. Along the way, Heidi was surprised by the kindness of strangers, which we possibly don't generally see that or think that it's possible, but it is. And the emotional pinch of traveling through Wyoming, where she grew up. Her journey led her through the plains and into the Ozarks, where the heat climbed to agonizing temperatures. Every pedal stroke in the heat felt closer to death. By the time she completed the trip, she discovered a newfound compassion for herself and a growing love for her country. So it's quite an amazing journey because I read her book and strangers open up their hearts to her, and in turn she opened her heart to herself. And yeah, so this is a really, a gritty story of homecoming and the power of an open heart to connect with people across the nation with the diverse politics of America in 2024. So this memoir offers consideration for others and respect for the spirit of place as bridges to encounter our country and its people beyond the rifts. So I'm gonna welcome Heidi here. Thank you for being here.
It's such a pleasure to be here talking with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's an honor to have you here to share your journey so that we can be empowered, inspired, and uplifted by you, no matter where you are or what you're doing, even if you're not riding bicycles. So, yeah, so just to touch on a little further, I think this is going to be a fantastic talk because you just sharing a little bit more context in terms of this book and this journey that you took, right? So essentially, you finished your first year of graduate studies in community and regional planning. Then you decided to take this bicycle solo trip, right? You went from West Coast across rural America to the Preserving the Historic Road Conference in Washington, D.C. So this whole thing kind of started out as a research trip, right? And and then so you want to tell us a little bit more about this in terms of this trip, this journey. I love
Absolutely.
your story.
Yeah, I mean the conference was a sort of like a secondary motivator. So in 2008, when the recession hit the United States, I was underemployed, I was depressed, I was just feeling stuck in my life, that the opportunities I was looking for were not coming. And I thought that while the economy wasn't doing very well, maybe it was a good time to go back to school and get a degree that would help me get the kind of jobs or access to the kinds of jobs that were appealing to me. So I returned back to school. I was 34 at the time. So September of 2009, I go back to school, and it just was really a shock to my system. All the deadlines for school and changed my sleep cycle, and I couldn't see my friends anymore. And just like I had to narrow my focus down to just getting the work done at school, and it made me not very happy. And I thought I had made the wrong decision about going back to school. So at the end of the first term, when I was feeling like I wasn't maybe going to make it another term, I received an email from my mom, and she suggested, hey, there's this Preserving Historic Road conference in Washington, D.C. in September. Let's go, and we can hang out with, my uncle who lived there. And I thought about it, and I was like, that just doesn't sound like I mean, it sounds interesting, but it doesn't sound like the thing I need to, you know, like inspire myself or pull me out of my funk. And I gave it just like a quick look, and I was like, well, it's in September. That's before the next school year starts. And so I just wrote this flip email. I was like, hey, okay, I'll ride out there and meet you. And then after I sent the email, I thought, well, that's a great idea. Like that would give me like the summer on my bike, and spending time on my bike was really all I wanted to do. And so then that became the motivator to um, put the research project together and pedal out there. And I also went alone because I couldn't imagine inviting anybody else onto this insanity. Like I didn't know how much work I was going to be doing, and it just was like too much to think about having somebody else be part of it. So so I just went on my own.
Wow. So, and I find I think it takes a lot of courage, like just to say, like, I'm going to do this whole trip on my own, right? Like, have you did you ever do such a trip or similar trips prior to this, or is it the first time?
Well, I think there's a few ways of answering that. So certainly growing up in Wyoming, I learned a lot of self-reliance because it's sort of the environment and culture in Wyoming is such that, it's kind of like you're on your own, kid. So I think I was already independent by nature. And then I grew up in this environment that was like taught me that I really needed to rely on myself. And and as a result, I had gone mountain climbing. I went with people sometimes, but I also went by myself, and I really enjoyed going solo. So it wasn't for me, it wasn't so much of a stretch about, do I feel up to the task of doing this? It was kind of a natural outgrowth. I'll also say that, going mountain climbing solo doesn't necessarily put me around a whole lot of other people, um, or put me in kind of like socially fearful situations. Certainly not the kind of thing that I was doing where I was actually putting myself out on the road with with traffic. So there were some things that I probably didn't think about as like, oh, that's going to be a little more challenging.
Hmm. So it was kind of like a journey unfolding. I mean, you knew some things. It was kind of how you grew up in terms of that, environment, so you're kind of used to being very self-reliant, right? And then you were discovering things as along the way. So that I think yeah, I'm loving this because this is very interesting for a cultural note here, kind of thing. And of course, this doesn't represent all the Asian, families out there, but in Chinese culture, for example, the children oftentimes will stay at home. They don't really pursue such activities as too much because there's a lot of risk involved, kind of thing. So, and then the focus is generally, and this does not apply to all. I'm just giving you snippets. So general focus would be like studying, academics, and getting a job, something of a stability. Nothing really of an adventure, I would say, because even growing up myself, it would just be like, "Oh, mom, I want to do this. Dad, I want to do this," and then they just be like, no, just, focus and study hard, yeah. After that, when you graduate from university, you can do whatever you want. That was a lie. So but, of course, to each their own, everyone has a different journey, but I'm loving this because, I see such inspiration and empowerment and, such energy in terms of, your journey because that doesn't mean to say, like, everyone should just get their bike out and just go ride and figure out the path, but, there's so many things that you can take away to be inspired from. Now, I want to ask you about what made you feel the most empowered about sharing your story? I know that, a lot has happened since, like, yeah, you want to go into that a little bit.
Well, there wasn't a moment where I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna share my story," because I was blogging the whole time I was going across the country. So it was like instantaneously sharing. Um, but I did have hopes that I might be able to write a book as a result, and that journey took much longer to um, to bear fruit. And um, I don't know that there was like a particular moment when I was like, I want to share this story, because I was always thinking this is a great story to share, and it has lots of little episodes. And so on my writing journey, I wrote a couple short essays and had those published, and then I was learning, like, wow, I can write about an awful lot of stuff that applies to memoir in my life, the like who I am or who I was as a person that led to me going on this crazy adventure. And then it wasn't until like December of 2017 where I had a mentor was like, "No, you should write about the bike ride." And then it had its own momentum. It was kind of like riding across the country, but it just is a much more arduous process, actually. So um, I would say to the people out there that there's so much more opportunity for people, I think, to write their stories and share their stories. And you don't have to ride across the country to do it. And in fact, I think it's more challenging to write the story than it is to ride across the country. So if you feel like you don't have the grit or the oomph or whatever, you actually do.
So it's kind of within you. You have
It,
to do some self-discovery and then pull it out, so to speak, learn it, get to know yourself. Um, and no, I think that's very powerful. You talked about so this is kind of different, right? Because usually people are writing and they plan things out. They're not actively riding a bicycle across harsh conditions, so to speak, and then blogging along the way. I know you blogged when you could get internet access, right, kind of thing. So, and I know, there was a snippet of a moment where you mentioned you were taking pictures of the scenery, but then you didn't realize that people actually want to see you, Heidi. Like, and that's an interesting pivot of the camera angle, kind of thing. So, and I find that fascinating because I wanted to see you too. so so I was like, okay, because I wanted to see what you were seeing in the scenery, in the landscapes, but then I also wanted to see you in the journey. So that was a interesting concept and idea of shift. And so I wanted to ask you too, like, how have you? I know there's been challenges in this path, in this project, and your whole research, right? Like, how have you continued to choose empowerment and positivity over the years, even though there's been setbacks? And maybe if you like to be able to share a little bit what those setbacks were, like just doing this research, aside from the environmental um, obstacles that have come up, right? And challenges, but like, yeah.
I think there is probably something about me that requires a certain level of challenge or difficulty to like inspire me to have the revelation or to do the work. Like if it's easy, I think for me maybe it doesn't uh, uh, maybe that's not the choice for me. Like I gravitate toward the thing that feels more challenging because there's just something more exciting about that. And wow, I mean the whole the whole ride, I mean, was its own kind of setback. I mean, different aspects of it were their own setback. Like I had taken on too much, with the blogging and the writing and everything else that I was doing, and so I wasn't getting enough sleep, and then that was making things challenging, and then when it got hot, then that was like another whole thing, and I I needed those experiences of kind of like wringing myself out to the very last drop in order to understand this thing about um, loving myself. Um, and then, and I can talk about more of that too, but I think in the actual writing of the book, like two big setbacks that I had. Um, One was like I was hard pressed to make money and just kind of survive. And so there was a lot of um, navigating how I don't know, just like looking for work, doing the work, and having the time to write. And at one point, the pressure of the work environment really took priority and I wasn't able to write. And then also had a relationship change in the midst. And so dealing with that kind of emotional fallout and some of the other things that came along with it really put a pause on the writing, but were also an opportunity to kind of like catch my breath and just learn and discover like what it was that I really felt compelled to do. Like what were the things that I really wanted to invest my time in, and writing was one of those things.
That's a beautiful share, and thank you for sharing all those very important points. Um, they're about how we go about doing our daily living. They're the very real situations that each of us can encounter because, yeah, and all those challenges are real because those are the questions that, kind of aligning with your book of what you said about how can I be okay in my own skin, right? What does it mean to be enough, right? How do I satisfy my desire to travel, in terms of, without harming the environment, the planet? And what does it mean to love America? And most importantly, about loving yourself. I think that was what that journey was unfolding. And of course, I think not to generalize, but in life, like a lot of things happen. Everything may not be smooth and perfect, but every single moment of it is, learning to navigate through it, right? So, and then finding yourself, and then you can, I guess, in the sense, choosing empowerment and positivity over the years, right, to continue to go, even though there has been setbacks. Now, I did wanted to touch on that, while you're navigating through this, and I know that you had, I think National Geographic Traveler also reached out to you to ask for your feedback on your journey. What was that like? Like, were you nervous or like excited? Like, yeah, like people were waiting on you, right? For
I was so excited. I was like, wow, like this is, this is kind of like a dream come true. Holy mackerel. And then I wasn't I wasn't able to respond to it right away. And and that kind of had its own pressure to it. I was like, oh, I really want to do this. I really need to get to it. And I just had to wait until I had a little bit of time in my schedule where I could work on that. And then, there was so much stuff happening on this journey. And so I finished with National Geographic Traveler right before the conference. And so I immediately switched into like, I have to prepare my talk and what am I going to say? And I'm socializing and all of these other things. And I kind of forgot what I had written and that it was happening until the conference was over. And then there was this moment where I had this opportunity after everything was said and done, and I was like, okay, well, what's this journey about? And I I re I clicked on the link to see it posted on online, and it was so cool to see on National Geographic Traveler. And then reading through what I had written, I was like, wow, it's almost like a love letter to myself. I was just so touched by like, wow, I had some clarity there around, what advice I would give to other people is also the advice I would give to myself.
Oh, I love that. What advice that you would give to other people is also the advice that you would give to yourself. That's so beautiful. And I think thank you for sharing. Like I feel like it's so important to get to a point in life where you write a love letter to yourself. Not in a narcissistic way in any sort, but like really just honoring like what you've done, acknowledging that and having the awareness of yourself or how you come about, right? Because I feel like that's a very powerful moment in your life where you acknowledge your existence. That's your identity, right? It isn't just one identity, but it's also little pieces of building of who you are, right? Kind of thing. So I wanted to ask you, like, I know we have this you wrote that article at National Geographic. What were the questions that people ask you, like that came up? Yeah. Like I remember I think that's what you were mentioning, right? Yeah.
Well, so some of it is kind of just like nuts and bolts questions, like how, where did you stay? How long did you ride per day? Um, for biking, one of the questions was like, I'm sure food was a big part of it. Did you have any memorable food experiences? And and then the last question was around like the interviewer is like, you know, I like to ride my bike, but I've never gone touring before. What advice would you give to somebody who's interested in touring, but maybe isn't ready to go hop on a bike and go across the country?
Oh, that's very important information. And I guess a side question now, would you ever come to Canada to ride your bike?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we got lots of land too for you, right? So no, and so if you could tell your younger self anything, what would it be?
Oh, this question always makes me tear up. But I would start by telling her that her dream to write a book comes true. And sorry.
No, take your moment. This is your moment.
Well, and it's all the questions you've been asking me, the things that I would tell her that, you know, things are going to feel hard. They're going to feel like they're not going the way you think they're going, or I don't know. You think they're going to go one way, but actually they are going the direction you're thinking. They just don't. don't seem like it. To just stick with it. You're on the path, and just just be true to yourself, who you know in your inner being, who you are, and that's all you have to do.
Thank you so much for sharing that vulnerable moment. I felt every single second of it, even though we're just over Zoom. So I can see, I can hear, and thank you for sharing that because it's very beautiful and so very true. And I think that's, to be honest, it's really not easy being a girl, being a woman, or being a human in this entire globe that we live in. And I think that thing that you shared, all those things that you shared about what you would tell your younger self is applicable to every single human being in this life, in this journey, in this world that we share together. And it's so powerful just having believing in yourself, even though there has been setbacks or challenges and just kind of going through. And I love the point where this is the point that I also stress too, you just got to be truthful to yourself, right? You got to do things that you feel aligned with and want to do, and that's how you can continue that journey. You can go forth with life with steady footing, keep walking strongly. And so I apologize if this triggers a lot of emotion, but it's so powerful, it's so organic, it's so truthful. So this is exactly what her stories Untold is about. I want to hear real people's stories, and because that's what we each one of us are. No matter what role you play in front of the camera and behind the camera, like we're just humans, walking this
Yeah.
journey together. So, and I guess wrapping up, like with all these points in mind, how did this writing and sharing your story process affect your healing and transformation journey? Yeah, from before you took this trip and then to afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, really digging into the writing and learning what the story was, because I had a draft narrative that was very long that I couldn't really say, like, well, what is the story about? I knew it was about this journey that I had taken, but I didn't really know what the story was in it. And then um, through the process of cutting it and making decisions about what stayed and what went, I really I really learned what it was about, and then and and that healing about learning, it's I don't know. Well, I'll give an example. Like there was I was trying to decide how much space to give other characters. Um because it seemed important for the story and the narrative, that these other people are important. And at some point, I realized that the more real estate I gave them in the book, the less there was for me, and that really was my story, and that some of these people who were more important in helping me on my journey were still people helping me on my journey. They weren't necessarily any different than, the short encounter I had with somebody at a rest stop or something like that. So that was that was really healing and transformative for me to just understand, like, oh no, this is my story. This is like my opportunity to be in the limelight um with this experience and what it is I want to share. And then the other part of it was really understanding, you know, it's a love letter to myself, but it's also a love letter to America, and just really coming to own that discovery of like love for my nation, especially at a very strange political time. Um, it was very very healing for me, and I feel like has really set me up for what I'm doing now.
And yeah, no, thank you for sharing because there's 2 points that I observed, just listening to you now is that part about, writing giving space to yourself, owning your own space, and sharing about you more than others. I think that's something that, as a woman, we can relate to, even in general situations in life, for example, because we're constantly, trying to empathize, oh, how can it be better, or what can I do to help other people, right? And I feel like that's almost somewhat in our fundamental nature to think about those things, right? And then it takes time to get to a stage where you're like, no, you know what? I need to talk about this, or I need to do this, and it's okay that I take up this space, this time to do so, to share those stories, to say the things that I want to say. But constantly, you know, as a girl growing up to a woman, I think we have these moments of self-doubts, right? Where we can't fully come into be. So I think it's once again emphasizing the importance of this love letter to yourself. And then the second point that I wanted to touch on is that you said it was a love letter to your country, right? And I think through this journey, you explored the depths of yourself, your soul, and then you explored the depths and of this country and all the situation. You felt it, right? Rather than just reading it, and on text, because it's through the news or watching the media news or movies and stuff like that, or just hearing other people's words. You experienced it yourself. So I found your book healing. I didn't ride any bikes across America, but I found it, what you were sharing, and just showing, and the details that you talked about, of woman, the challenges navigating on this hard trip, right? Like, I thought it was very, very important. Yeah. Now coming down, I guess, just wrapping it up in this area, what message do you have women around the globe, girls today? What do you see that what are some possible gaps, or, moments of inspiration or notes that you would like to share?
Well, I recognize my privilege in being from America and having a lot of latitude to follow my dreams and do the things I want to do. And I know not every woman and girl across the globe has that opportunity. So, you know, what I would offer is, you are enough however you are right now. That is a really important place to start. Being in touch with who that person is, and offering them love and nourishment, which is kind of like, what do you like to do? Like, find space to do that. And um you know like, feed your ambitions, feed your dreams, chase the butterflies.
Yeah, yeah. No, those are I'm being inspired as you speak. I was like, "You know what? This message is not just for women and girls around the globe, and thank you for very kindly acknowledging that we're all in different situations and walks of life, but the key point is this, just staying empowered and pushing through, right? So to speak, and no matter what you're doing. And I think this message aligns for any human being, So today, I think the homework for everybody is to go out there and go empower someone, and inspire them and give them words of a kind encouragement, because you just never know. The weight of those words can carry so much, push them so much wherever they need to go, right? Even if it's a micro step, right? So now, in alignment with that, let's talk about navigating through life, right? Now, in a lifetime, there are lots of moments where, fear can hold you back. What are some steps or tips that you can think of to, so that we can think about those and be inspired to push through when there is fear that is holding us back?
Yeah. Ah, so many ideas about this. w- uh, as on the one hand, like, fear is the medicine that we need.
Mm,
um I think. And so leaning into fear and seeing what's there is one strategy that I've used. I know that's also a very scary thing to do. um and maybe, is not always the thing that one wants to do, like if you're in a physically dangerous situation. But I feel like fear has a lot to teach us, and that it's worth sort of extending a hand towards it to see what it has to offer. To sort of embrace it or be kind even with the fear, as in the same way that you might with a stranger, just to see like we have something in common, and what is that, thing? Um, yeah, how to embrace fear or encounter it. Um, and I think being, again, being clear with who you are, being true to yourself and the thing that you're aiming for, and using that as a rudder, to help you navigate, because I feel like the thing, we're on the path, like we're being given the things that we need in order to get to where we're going, and nobody ever said that they were going to be, it was going to be smooth sailing the whole way. And so I think, uh, just accepting, right, surrendering to the fact that this is uncomfortable, or it's frightening, or it's scary, and there's something for me here. Either I have to pass through this to get to the other thing, or it's showing me that I need to pivot. But you can't know that until you just, kind of come up to the edge of it.
Those are very, very great tips to share. And, I'm hearing things like this is all kind of leading to having courage no matter where you are, who you are, and what circumstances you are in. Of course, safety is a priority. Always be safe first. And then I think it's important that, the mention of leaning into your fear. Of course, applicable to different situations have different ways of dealing, but leaning into fear is like taking fear in essence, kind of like fear is giving you a lesson in life and then kind of learning from that situation. um, to put it in simple daily terms of practice, it's like when you wake up each morning, this is like maybe easier to relate in a daily thing. It's like tackling the hardest task, you know? Because that's the most fearful task, you have to do. But tackling that first, everything else becomes much easier because you already know how to handle those things, right? So, um, yeah, and then that in essence is kind of like leaning into the fear because you chose the hardest task, because then you didn't leave it to last minute. Because what happens when you leave those things to last minute? You either don't deal with it, you don't address it, it doesn't get resolved, and gets postponed, and it drags on forever, kind of thing, right? So of course, depending on the situation. But in alignment, I think everything that you have shared so far about what you would tell your younger self and what messages you have for other women, girls and people around the globe, it's all kind of in alignment, leading together and building that courage to continue to navigate through life. My next question is how how do we help others and offer support if anyone is experiencing self-doubt, whether it's their life or career and whatnot kind of thing. And sometimes, especially right now in this current state of the world, a lot of times people don't share that because they're withdrawn, right? Everyone's going through a lot. And even if you talk to someone, you might not even know they're experiencing some stuff, right? So how do we help others? Like, yeah, some tips on that.
Yeah. Well, um, go through, well, be a warrior of love is one thing that I think is great, because that, love is boundless. You don't run out of it. And the more you put out in the world, the more the more you experience and get back. And if somebody else is feeling self-doubt, your love can support them, and the same might come your way too. You can also do it for yourself. I know that sometimes feels very, very challenging, but so just heart forward, I believe, is one of the great ways of being in the world. And as I talk about slow travel too, I think that having time, in nature can also
Very
be
challenging, but
nourishing to um to the soul, and that you can have moments of experiencing what's happening out in the world, out in nature. And, it's like a fractal. And the more you see and connect with all the other organisms and living beings in the world, I think it also helps us feel less alone. Um, and and that can also really be a salve to self-doubt.
That's beautiful. So, in talking, tying things up, like slow traveling, immersing yourself, allowing people to find nourishment and rejuvenation in outdoors, as you mentioned, and the mindfulness of micro travel, noticing little things that you might have not taken the time to notice them, that type of thing. And I think, yeah, it's just completely beautiful. Um, I wanted to ask you, like, who should be reading your book?
Well, I think the book is really good. It's for armchair travelers, for people who are interested in bikes, but I think just like women generally, it does have some kind of intimate physical details. So I wouldn't necessarily give it to young girls per se, or young boys, but um, but people who are a little older, like in their 20s. And and then
Sorry, there's a little bit of fuzz, interconnection issue, so can I just take a pause of a moment? My apologies. Yeah, thank you. Hi, are you able to hear me?
yes.
Perfect, sorry about that, yeah. There's just yeah, there was a little technology. Sorry. Yeah, we were please continue with your point.
Yeah, so the book is also good for anybody who I think is going through a transition in life, or might be feeling stuck and kind of curious for some I don't know, some inspiration on how they could go somewhere different.
Yeah, absolutely, and I read your book, so thank you for taking this journey, doing your research project, and then sharing with all the things that you have encountered and experienced, because there's just so much to take away from. I don't just see this book as, for girls or women, planning to take a solo trip, that type of thing to read. In fact, I think, everybody can take something away from it, like learn something, be inspired by it, because you also share the journeys of other people that you've met, right? How they've treated you, inspired you, and gave you um, encouragement in moments of doubts, right? And then just having the strength to keep going, kind of thing, because there certainly are those moments in life, and so I think it's an important book, and if you're not the traveling type, but you want to take a trip, this book is a trip. Yeah, because I actually felt really inspired, empowered, and when I finished reading your book, I was like, wow, I felt like I just rode a bike somewhere. Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, so that's a way to do it. It's a great read, especially right now in the summertime. Um, yeah, is there yeah, so is there any other projects that you're working on or planning on at this moment that you wanted to share?
Well, I have a sequel underway. I am not sure, what it'll wind up looking like. It's pretty far along,
Yeah.
but got held up because I had some friends suggest maybe I make part of it into a graphic memoir, and I didn't know how to do that. So anyway, that's kind of in the works. And then I've also been interviewing people about equitable access to outdoor recreation and doing interviews with people about that. And those are currently available on my website. And who knows, maybe they will also become some other product, but right now they're available for everybody.
Did you want to go in a little bit about what that means in terms of access? Yeah, because I think it's probably something important. Yeah.
Well, part of what I've been thinking about with slow travel is what does travel of the future look like, um, and how can anybody do it? So a lot of times people experience barriers, like maybe they don't have very much time to get around, or maybe they don't have very much money, or maybe they're physically limited, or it could be anything, really. So I've spent some time thinking about how um like how anybody could experience the benefits of travel and slow travel in in particular. So I've been checking myself by asking people what their experience is like traveling. So if they have a different cultural identity than I do, or we're talking about Disability Awareness Month. Like, if they have physical challenges to experiencing the outdoors, what are those? And part of what I'm interested in learning about is, given what these barriers are, how can we in the world as planners or whoever um, be more mindful of accommodating people, or creating travel experiences, or um, tours, or other things that really support the diversity of people in the world.
Mm. So kind of like um, the community aspect, looking at the larger umbrella and then empowering each other through little moments. And I see a key word here. It's like it's empathizing, having empathy to be aware of yourself and your surroundings and people that you meet across, a journey, your journey, and fundamentally that mindfulness, you know. I think you were talking about the slow travel or micro travel is it's not having to go too far or too grand, right? Because every trip isn't like things that we see on social media on Instagram, right? Because they show you glamorous moments and snippets of it, right? After you edit, you film, you put that up, right? The grab visual aspect of it. But in real life, that's not the case, 24/7, every single microsecond, right? It's what you're talking about, if I'm understanding correctly, it's like what catches your attention, as you mentioned, such things like noticing a flower, right? Slow travel, micro travel could take place in simple daily activities like walking and running, right? And you just gave me an idea. Maybe you even slow traveling, having these little trips inside your house, inside your own home, noticing this plant that is slowly dying in the corner of the room, as mundane as it is, right? You're becoming mindful about it, right? What didn't catch your attention before, right? And then giving it that nourishment, right? Um, to come back to life or to grow better, right? So that's the same sort of idea, but in a different environment that you applied internally and then external environment, right? So I think that's really beautiful because when you travel, it's like, oh yeah, you get on a plane, you go to another country, everything's rush, 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 pack, pack, pack. It's kind of like stressful, but that's not what just that traveling is all about, Yeah. So I love this how you talk about and share about the focus on the travel experience itself. You have this destination in mind, but the journey is that journey that you take for yourself too. So beautiful. So thank you so much for sharing that. And definitely I will be sharing afterwards the links to your website. And I want to find out, how do we get a copy of your book?
Well, Heidi Cross America is available anywhere books are sold. So you can order it online. You can go to your favorite independent bookseller and order it there. Um, yeah, lots and lots of places to find it.
Amazing. So yeah, we'll be sharing those links too as well. So thank you very much. I sincerely, it was such an honor to have you here today to talk about your journey and then sharing all your inspirations and empowerment to others. I really appreciate your time.
So much joy. It's been just, yeah, a super pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, and I'm sure the audiences are gonna really enjoy this talk. So yeah, take care and have a beautiful summer. May you ride on. And I'm very much looking forward to your the future publications that you're planning on. So thank you again. Take care. Bye for now.